And China has opened a deep water port in Peru, sounding alarms in Washington over potential security concerns. For a deep dive discussion into the Chinese regime's growing ties with Latin America, we speak to Antonio Graceffo. He's a China economic analyst and author of Red Alert, China's Global Power and How It Threatens U.S. National Security. Thank you for being with us, Antonio. This is a major port. It's just shipping fruit right now, or at least it's going to be, but in Washington, they're very concerned, like the chief of Southern Command says, that it might be used for intelligence gathering, some military applications. Is that a realistic possibility?
Oh, absolutely. And, China manufactures surveillance equipment. They also manufacture remote operated cranes and other types of port equipment that's being distributed all over the Americas, and it's all equipped with surveillance equipment. This port in Peru is particularly concerning, but this issue is all along Latin America and all through the Caribbean.
So there's a professor at the U.S. Army War College, and he says that China is seeking secure access to resources, critical minerals, and there could be a train line that goes from Peru out of this port into Brazil. On the economic front, does that alone present a challenge or a threat to the United States?
Absolutely. This gives the CCP greater access to minerals and resources. This decreases their costs. This allows them to compete with us on world markets. It also gives them a bit of security that if we do go to war, that they will have more secure supply chains, and they would be less concerned about running out of or experiencing shortages during a war. And of course, it brings these countries closer to Beijing's orbit. And these are countries that are in the backyard of the Americas.
So, this is a multi-billion-dollar deep water port, meaning they don't have to use multiple ports to get all these ships together to consolidate. They just go right there. And this is generating about $4.5 billion in annual revenue for Peru. So definitely a tightening tie there. My question to you is, Antonio, why did the U.S. not engage President Duarte when she came to Washington prior to this rollout of this port?
Yeah, that's a very good question. This was an absolute slap in the face of the United States, really slap in the face of Joe Biden. Biden was there for the APEC summit. This port was inaugurated during the summit. I don't believe Biden was invited. And this is just Xi Jinping's way of saying that he is now in the Americas. He's landed there and he's planted his flag, and he's creeping up through our back door.
So, Antonio, how does this fit in with the broader network called China's Belt and Road Initiative? And why doesn't the United States have an alternative?
Yeah, initially I thought that the Belt and Road Initiative was dead or it was certainly dying. It has been for the last 4 years, but this is a significant development, and this is a huge boost. This is probably something that Xi Jinping was picturing when he initially started the Belt and Road. So this is huge for him. It shows that the Belt and Road is alive. It is creeping up on the United States. The U.S. does not have a very good alternative to the Belt and Road. And of course, under Biden, we were not very confrontational with our allies in Latin America in trying to dissuade them from being too close to China.
Antonio, very interesting. Can you give us a big picture as to why Americans should be concerned about this? This is thousands of miles away, but China has a history of horrible human rights abuses, economic predatory practices. Why should Americans care that China is growing its influence in other parts of the world like Latin America?
Right. When you talk about humanitarian issues and democracy, the U.S. often ties our aid and trade and investment to improvements in human rights and democracy. China does not do that. So China then provides these countries with income that they can have regardless of what happens with their democracy, the quality of democracy, or regardless of their human rights situation. If the U.S. brings sanctions against these countries, then China becomes a buffer, similar to what's happening in Russia. And then from a surveillance standpoint, we now have Chinese hardware, Chinese satellite capabilities, very close to the United States, close to the Caribbean, close to Latin America. These are all areas that were once under U.S. domain. Additionally, China has outfitted some of these ports to accommodate PLA Navy vessels rather than standard merchant vessels that can also accommodate warships, which means that they would eventually potentially become naval bases for the PLA Navy.
And think about it, any trade that the United States would have had with Peru is now being absorbed into trade with China. So there's also that happening at the same time. If there's more time, we could talk about that, but I want to get your comment quickly on Trump's proposed 10% tariffs on Chinese goods, on top of everything else that he's proposing, to stop the flow of the deadly fentanyl coming into the United States. Would that alone do anything?
I don't know that that's going to stop fentanyl, but it is definitely a step in the right direction. We need tremendous tariffs on China to prevent importation of goods from China and to cut the income to the CCP. And the CCP needs to be held accountable for this fentanyl thing. It's been years. There's been multiple discussions. Something needs to be done, and Trump is doing that.
And that's 6 billion lethal doses that came into the United States in the recent fiscal year alone. So that's plenty of fentanyl, and that's very deadly. It has to be addressed. Antonio Graceffo, China economic analyst and author of Red Alert, thanks for coming on our show.
Thank you.